Cafe Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 903. Hello, it's Mike Matthews broadcasting from Cafe Anyway here at the last place on earth, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Today it's the return of the much-loved segment WOW SCHATZ WOW, where we look at an odd activity that has become increasingly popular lately at college campuses. Plus, we hear from Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and
Mike's Daily Podcast,
the Brewmaster. He's so funny with his little hat. Hey, look at my hand.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's so cool. It does things for me. Have you had this particular strange thing happen to you where someone forces a video from YouTube on your senses because they think it's completely incredibly good, only to have you sit there going, why did I just watch this, you fool? That's basically all that Facebook is anymore. Watch this, read this.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
We become a society of culture pushers. I kind of miss the days where people would suggest things to you and then
Mike's
you could politely
Daily
ignore them.
Podcast.
Now the videos people are pushing on Facebook. Well, the people have videos on Facebook and they play. Even if you don't want them to, they just start to play. Luckily, the sound doesn't play, but they just start to... And I'm like, what am I looking at? No, I don't want to see that. Or you see somebody just talking at the screen, and you can't hear them because, the sound doesn't play. And you're like, oh, I got to find out what they're saying. You're hitting the sound button. Thank you, Facebook, for that. And I guess it's pretty much only there on Facebook. The what do they call it? The pre-roll just starts to play, and you don't want it to. And I think it's like people when they're telling you, hey, have you heard that song? No, what song? It's the new Miley Cyrus, and you're like, I do not want to know what that song sounds like. They go, it sounds like this. I came in like a wreck. Oh, man, why? I didn't even want to hear what that song sounded like. And then they go ahead and start singing it. Actually, it's kind of neat to be surrounded by people that sing to you all the time. I kind of like that world. Speaking of singers, next week I may be speaking with a band by the name of Dark Ocean Colors. They are really cool, very retro sounding, and as in like kind of a 60s rock pop sort of thing. But they got back to me today, and I may be talking to them next week, yay. And the other thing is, speaking of Facebook, now they're showing, what's trending, what news stories are trending, which a lot of people think, hey, we're going to get our news from Facebook in the future. Forget Brian Williams. Oh, wait, we have forgotten Brian Williams. It's all about Lester Holt now. Lester Holt. Love the Lester Holt. And the name itself is awesome. It sounds like a robot that will save mankind. Lester Holt. What am I saying? Oh, yeah, Facebook's got these news items that they tell you now. And the big news item in my feed, because I live so close to it, the Hayward Fault. And apparently the seismic, the U.S. seismic people that keep an eye on earthquakes and whatnot say that we will have an earthquake like in the next couple of days along the Hayward Fault. And that, when I read that last night, it put me into a panic. I filled everything I have up with water. I am going to, I have an escape... No, I don't. I don't have an escape path method in my head already. I guess I considered going to bed with shoes on, because I'm thinking, there's going to be an earthquake, all this glass is going to be shattered, I'm going to be walking on glass. I considered wearing, a helmet to bed. It's crazy, the way they scare you like this. And if in the next 4 days we don't have an earthquake, well, A, number one, thank God, and B, number two, if we don't have an earthquake, it's hysteria. Thank you, government, for feeding us with hysteria. Of course, the local media feeds into it because they know that sells papers. Oh, wait, we don't sell papers anymore. It sells clicks. It sells ad time, which involves clicks, etc. So I just wanted to finish up by saying I hope there's no earthquake. The Hayward Fault is an amazing fault. I would never leave California just on the earthquake situation, as many have. Because anywhere you go in the U.S., there's potential for disaster. And you just need to, if you are a Californian, well, I'm a born and raised Californian. I know earthquakes. My earliest memories is of an earthquake and my mom pulling me out of bed at like 3 a.m. during the San Fernando earthquake of like the 70s. So I'm used to this thing. It was the tornadoes that freaked me out in Alabama. That was crazy. It's like, there's going to be a tornado, set off all the alarms. Woo! I guess this kind of ticks me off what the geological people said about the possible earthquake thing, because to me, that's almost like setting off a low tornado alarm right now to freak us all out. Thanks, guys. At any rate, I got a bunch of water all set to go. By the way, there's some really beautiful trails to hike along the Hayward Fault. Perhaps I should do that today. And then it'll start shaking and I'll fall right into it. Maybe not. Look who just walked in.
Hi, Mike. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How y'all doing?
And to Disgruntled Fiddle Player, tell you what.
What?
I think you should know that there's a great video on YouTube of me taking a lasso and throwing it around a fiddle and then rustling it down.
You know, it's interesting how we become a society of content providers, and that there's really nobody on this planet anymore that isn't an anchor man or woman. We're a world of talking heads. It's what we are now. And anybody can make a video. What stands out, what makes one video more impressive than another, is if you can make it look more professional than any other, if you can add a certain twist. Everybody's looking for the twist now, and it's easier than ever to do it. It's crazy. But now, like, you're listening to a podcast. If you go way back to my earliest podcast, which was called The Messy Desk, I did it at the beginning of 2009. And I was so overjoyed about podcasts. I'm like, hey, we don't have to be chained down listening to what we hear on the radio and the same old stuff that comes out of the mouths of these people like me that I was in radio. And I'm like, I want to hear from the average everyday person. I hope everybody now, podcasts allows anyone to chat about whatever. And I find those shows fascinating, though, the independent ones. Unfortunately, in podcasts, you've got a lot of the big podcasts, or the ones that are done that are done for the radio, like your Ira Glasses, and, disgusting radio people like me. But I was trying to do something different with this podcast, with the characters and everything like that. Like this guy walking in.
Hello there, Mike. I make the root beer. I'm the Brewmaster.
Brewmaster, have you made a delicious root beer today? Does anybody drink root beer anymore? Is the question.
Actually, it's kind of coming back. As craft beers are getting more and more popular, now they're trying to come up with new ways to make root beer, boy.
I had a beer the other day that had, like, all this stuff in it, like coffee things in it, and so I can see where they would take a root beer and maybe tweak it, make it interesting.
Mike, I like the videos that tell me how to put on makeup.
And it looks like it's working. Your makeup looks incredible.
Thanks. I feel like I'm wearing a clay mask. I'm showing my clay mask to the world. Okay, I'm done talking to y'all. Bye, bye. Wash my face when I get out of here.
Well, what do you think about all that? You can email me, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. We read your comments in the section emails from email. You can also check out the iTunes thing. That's where you can listen to us there at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com, the iTunes link, and comment on the show, rate the show. More people find out about us if you do that. If you want to comment on the show, we read your comments in the section. Emails from email and your comment, not so comments. We're on Twitter at Mike Talks, on Facebook at facebook.com/MIKEs-DAILY-Podcast. And you can also find us on Instagram, Yelp, Tumblr, and Twitter. Yes, you can also hear us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podomatic, Mixcloud, Spreaker, Player FM, AmeriStream Live, And weekends, I do a country show on Country Crossroads Radio, the internet country station. A link to that at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. And if you want to help us out through the Amazon link, if you're going to buy anything on Amazon, go through that link at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. And there, if you want to also help us out through the PayPal and become a Mike's Daily Podcaster, you will also get a special MP3 for thee from all the characters here at Mike's Daily Podcast and the cafe anyway. And now some interesting news stuff that you didn't know about.
Wow, Schatz, wow.
That was a band that was called The Great Divide. They were like a pseudo country band in the 90s, and a song called College Days. Speaking of college, here is Wow Schatz Wow. Some interesting facts. Whenever I told my mom something interesting, she'd always go, Wow Schatz Wow. And she's doing well, by the way. Thanks for asking. She's doing well. I was talking to her this week, and she was just full of fun, fascinating facts. So in honor of her, as commencement season has passed us by, it was like a month or so ago. This according to the New York Observer. Celebrities, politicians, philanthropists, philosophers, they descend upon campuses nationwide to impart their words of wisdom and one-liners to seniors relishing their final moments before graduation. But celebrity hasn't always been as essential a feature of commencements as diplomas. The tradition of bringing on a noteworthy speaker took shape in the late 19th and early 20th century as colleges sought to gain national attention and attract the best students from across the country. Walt Whitman, for instance, spoke to Dartmouth in 1872, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt held forth before the University of Pennsylvania in 1940. Since then, the tradition has only expanded, with students and media outlets eagerly awaiting the announcements of commencement speakers each year. Quote, high-profile speakers bring publicity to the school, said Julie Rubin, a professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She says colleges and universities constantly want their name out in the media because they are always seeking to attract potential applicants and to have a public presence. Stanford, one of the first schools to reveal its speaker earlier this year, has a rich history of notable addresses. In 2005, following his cancer diagnosis, Steve Jobs gave what may be the most popular in history. Stay hungry, he advised, stay foolish. This year, journalist and Stanford alum Richard Engel of NBC News took the podium where Bill and Melinda Gates stood last year. Other schools favor less academic speakers. Actor Matthew McConaughey and Robert Redford spoke at the University of Houston and Colby, respectively. I saw Steve... what's his name? Steve Wozniak, thank you. Speaking of Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, he spoke at the graduation at UC Berkeley when a former roommate of mine graduated from there a couple years back. And I remember in his speech he was talking about, and I had no idea he was going to speak, and all of a sudden he was up there on the stage. I'm like, what? And he talked about how he took road trips while he was taking classes at UC Berkeley. I think he went there for his master's or something. It wasn't the one that he initially graduated from. And he said, went on a road trip. He said, you need to go on road trips and just get lost, is what. And everybody was like, And then the guy sitting behind me was Hispanic, and he hated Wozniak because he thought he was a crazy liberal. And he goes, I hate liberals. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I'm sitting here at UC Berkeley with a very conservative Hispanic male, which is kind of, I guess, a oxymoron in today's world. No, wait, that's not an oxymoron. An oxycontin, an automatopoeia, a misanthrope. Doesn't happen often. A rarity. Thank you. While deciding the speaker may take quite a bit of organization on the part of the campus and discussion on behalf of the school, most speakers don't think twice before accepting the honor, despite many schools reporting no speaker's fee. Yes, no speaker's fee. Luckily, most speakers, when invited, agree to speak, said John Reardon, an advisor to the vice president of alumni affairs at Harvard. Harvard this year welcomed alum and former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick. He joined Samantha Power, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, speaking at the University of Pennsylvania, and film director Christopher Nolan, of course, the director of, what was the one where they fly? Interstellar to the stars, speaking of Matthew McConaughey, and the Batman films with Christian Bale. He spoke at Princeton. I don't know if they're really prissy, the people that go there. In addressing Ivy League institutions, other big schools have done just as well, with Applehead Tim Cook, who recently received press as the first openly gay CEO of a Fortune 500 company, speaking at George Washington University, and author Salman Rushdie appearing at Emory. But it isn't only big-name universities that tap in the big-name speakers, as evidenced by Dickinson College's wooing of esteemed novelist Ian McEwan. The late David Foster Wallace spoke at Kenyon in 2005, the same school that hosted Jonathan Franzen in 2011. Wallace's speech remains one of the most cited addresses, despite having been given to a class of fewer than 500. Quote, "The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline," he said, "and being able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad, petty, unsexy ways every day." And of course, politicians have taken the podium. George W. Bush was supposed to speak at Southern Methodist University this year, as well as Mitt Romney at Utah Valley University. Gee, what a surprise there. Last year, President Obama spoke at the University of California, Irvine. Wow. He actually was in Irvine. I make jokes about that because I believe my friend Colin went to school there. He's now studying in England. And Obama spoke at West Point last year. He may have as much to gain from those speeches as the schools do from his appearances. He tends to use the podium as a test run for nationwide addresses. The, quote, "through Seneca Falls and Selma and Stonewall," for example, used in his second inaugural address, was taken almost word for word from a phrase in his 2012 Barnard commencement address. Wow Schatz Wow. The lovely Sia and her song Academia. As experts debate the value of increasingly pricey college educations, one result of earning a bachelor's degree is clear. It dramatically decreases a man's chances of becoming a young father. This according to GazetteExtra.com. 70% of dads ages 22 to 44 who have less than a high school diploma fathered their first child before age 25. Yes, 70%. This according to a new Pew Research Center analysis of National Center for Health Statistics data. By comparison, 45% of dads with some college education had a child, and just 14% of dads with a bachelor's degree had their first child. So it just shrinks the higher the education. Dads who don't finish high school are far less likely to enter fatherhood later than life, the study found. A man's earning power, emotional stability, and relationship skills are typically stronger the further he gets into his 20s and 30s. A report in the journal Pediatrics stated that men who became first-time dads around age 25 experienced a 68% increase in depressive symptoms over the first 5 years of the child's life. A Pew Research Center report earlier this year found more educated women also delay parenthood. The median age for women with master's degrees or more to have their first child is now 30, while the median age for women with a high school diploma or less to become moms is 24. And 62% of mothers who never attended college had their first child before the age of 25. 62%. So it's interesting. And then there is also the radio station that I work for that has the Christian format with a bunch of pastors and preachers yapping all day. I heard actually one of them, I think this was last week, say, "And women, have your babies young and don't go to school." I actually heard that on a radio station that broadcasts in the Bay Area. I was a little bit interested in if the phones were going to start ringing, but they didn't. Oh, by the way, today at work, at the Christian radio station, there's a lady that works there. She's pretty much, very staunchly Christian, I guess would be the best way to put it, a devout Christian. And she doesn't really talk to anybody. She's always focused in her job. That's probably why they like her there. And I made some sort of joke to her about, good morning, top of the morning type of thing. And she like never laughs, and somehow that made her laugh. And immediately she turns around and she goes, "Do you want to go to my church? I have a comedian that's going to be at my church this weekend. You should go to the church." She thought that would be an incentive, that I actually enjoy going to see comedians. So then I would want to go to her church. Now, if she had said, "We're having a barbecue with free all-you-can-eat ribs," I would have been there in a heartbeat.
And if I am a number, I'm infinity plus one. And if you are 5 words, you are afraid to be the one.
Aw, colleges. I remember there was a time I could walk on a college campus and feel that, like I was included. And now if I walk on one, I immediately feel eyes of hate. Because now, in my 40s, I represent the man. And everyone hates me. I'm the old guy. Everybody's like, "Oh no, what's he doing on it? He's probably looking for his son to bring him some more Fig Newtons from home." That's what they're all thinking, right? I love going on college campuses, walking around going, the promise. There's so much potential here. And then I realize there are a bunch of depressed kids because they're like deep in debt, got so much homework to do, the papers they have to write, the crazy old teenagers my age that they have to deal with. I feel bad for them. Anyway, on that note, as we go outside of Cafe Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley.
And here's today's podcast picture.
The podcast picture is a scenic one that I took, and I don't really know where it is yet because I haven't picked it yet, but it'll be there here. On the Mike's Daily Podcast page there on MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST-903-News, that where you can see it. Okay. And that's pretty much the show. Next show, we are going to be bringing you another look inside the minds of people that go to dog parks. We're going to go to a different dog park than the one we went to last time, talk to another random person. It will be fun and off the wall as per usual. Plus, we will hear from Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.